Welcome back to the Abundant Harvest Homestead. I'm Papa Pepper. In this video, it's apple trees, and it's apple trees we're growing from seed. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, and to sum up that idea, I'm just going to play a short clip from Three Feathers Farm. Yes, it's a guy who also has dreads. Yes, it's a guy who also grows apple trees from seeds, but his little short really captures the mentality that some people have and the mentality that some other people have.
You stupid, worthless, no good, lazy.
Dude, I'm just trying to grow some apples from seed. It's not that big of a deal. Ain't you gonna get like a crab apple or something from that? Not necessarily. Plant some seeds from an apple you like, and chances are, you plant 100 seeds, at least 10 of them will be worth eating at the very least. I'll believe it when I see it.
That's part of it, guys. One apple has all the technology in it to grow a whole ton of apple trees, which can grow a whole ton of apples. Sometimes I'll see at least 10 seeds in some apples, I think. I know there's, 5 or 6 good viable seeds I get out of a lot of them. If I'm buying organic produce anyway, it gives me a chance. The guineas got up this morning. It gives me a chance to save the seeds, put them in the soil. This was a little seedling bed I had, and this is one of the apple trees that we're growing. Now, interesting thing, it will be years before I ever taste the fruit from this. One of those reasons is, if you read in the Bible, it says the first 3 years, you count the tree as one you're not going to eat of at all. The 4th year, you count it wholly unto the Lord, so that's where we'd give it to, like, if it's producing fruit the 4th year, we'd give it to poor people, widows, orphans, people who may have a need. And then the 5th year, we'd finally taste of it ourselves. So for 5 years, we're not even going to know if this is an apple we like. Well, doesn't that seem like a waste of time? Not really. It's going to be doing things for us anyway. I mean, I breathe out CO2. It takes in CO2 and it gives me back some oxygen. That's a good trade. We do plant a lot of trees around here. While we take out some of the other trees, we plant ones in their place a lot and grow different things, crafting this environment to work better for us, for our animals, and for other plants and stuff. But the cool thing is, if it is not tasty, if the apples are not tasty, well, they could still be used for things like apple cider vinegar or other stuff, or livestock forage, some feed for them. But I can always cut it back. I mean, if the tree's lasted 5 years, it's doing pretty well, so I can always cut it back, graft some other varieties that I like better into it, and then take all that cut wood and use that for my smokehouse. Like, everything has a purpose, it all has a use, and we've already seen what some things can do from seed. I'm looking at a big old tree over there in my duck pen. It's a big old peach tree that was grown from seed. So in this bucket, I've got a whole pile. There are so many seeds for peaches in this bucket. And they're in some moist wood mulch right now. And I'm just waiting to see when they start waking up and shooting. And then I'm going to find some homes for them. And a little later today, actually, a neighbor said I could pick up some of the seedlings that are growing beneath one of his that actually started from a seed as well. Somebody enjoyed a peach once back in the day. They chucked the pit out the window. It landed there on the edge of his property next to the road, and it grew a peach tree. Absolutely amazing peach tree, but not all the fruit gets eaten every year, so those peaches fall to the ground, and those seeds grow new peaches. I'm going to go get some of those seedlings later, but first, it's just picking up some of these apple trees that we grew. I've got 3 in here that I like. I'm going to pick them up, transplant them, and then cut them back. This one essentially has 4 heads. This is the best head, the one that's growing up tallest. And then it's got a branch off of it that I'm also going to remove. So I'm going to cut 4 different things off of here and just have one about 3-foot tall tree by the time I actually am done with it today. But first I got to dig up the roots. I like growing them in these raised beds. This was just kind of a little seedling garden, because the actual soil here in the Ozarks is a lot of rock and clay. You can put things in there that you can't get back because the ground is just so hard. So by growing it here in this raised bed, I have an opportunity where I can, right now I just dug down about 7 inches into this rich growing medium. So hopefully I'm able to finesse this root out a little better than if I just put it in the soil or if I used some heavier equipment like even a shovel. So I'm gonna go in here, get this guy out. We'll check out the root system and then I'll get these other ones out so we can give them a new home, because I too, just like Three Feathers Farm, definitely appreciate the opportunity that one seed gives me. And they even say about 8 or 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a tasty fruit. It's not going to be the same exact fruit as the parent tree because it was cross-pollinated a bit, but 8 or 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a tasty fruit. That 2 or 1 time out of 10, that's where I'll get something to maybe graft into and some wood to smoke with. No problem with that. So now I've gotten down where all these side runner roots, I kind of dug out as much as I could. I'm actually going to go in deep now with probably a post hole digger and see if I can kind of pinch and lift and keep kind of as much of this still with the soil on it as possible, and get as deep down on this root that I can. The goal is to keep as much of that intact as I can. That way I'm disturbing the least amount of roots possible. So it's still got some stuff here. I'll get this out to the field and planted before I prune it. I just got to pull up those other 2 as well. I'm going to get a bucket for this. I dropped in this bucket, then I'm using some moist compost to kind of hold it still, keep it packed in, allow as much of that soil to stay around there as possible. I like that. Got a little bit of pruning to do down here, but we got a good tree started. This one was really small, so I just went for it. And it's a double header right now. I'm not sure. I think I'll pick the straighter one of those, cut the other one off. That way, rather than having the root system split its power doing twice as much in two different areas, if I take off the more bent one, it'll all come up that one, and this one should be able to grow twice as much because it's got half the competition. So my hole is deeper than my root system on this little guy. I tried to keep as much soil around here as I could, and I wanted a deeper hole because I want looser soil for it to grow into. I'm also going to take these rocks, remove them, maybe use them in a rock pillar fence. But what I really want is for this tree to have about the same depth of soil as it had naturally when it grew on its own. This is actually 2 years old already, this tree. I didn't garden last year. The year before I put a bunch of seeds in there, and last year was a very dry year. I didn't do any gardening, so I didn't interact with them out there, and I just kind of let them go. Here, we've got two main sprouts. You guys can see that it splits into two. So what I'm gonna do is just snip off the one that's less straight. And that gives it a whole lot less to support. Then I'm going to put it where I want the soil level to be. I'm going to backfill and I'm going to leave it a little recessed so that way it's easier to water it. It'll have a little hole to water in. One thing you don't want to do is bury the heel of the tree, the kind of where it flares out. A lot of people bury their fruit trees too deep or they mulch them too high. I do not want to do that. So here I'm going to do this. Later I'll probably sprinkle some rabbit manure around here and just kind of let it come in. And a couple of these other little guys, this looks like it's going to form a branch. So I'm just going to gently pick that off. Same thing here and here. I don't want to make too many wounds or too big of wounds, so just pinching them off helps with that. And then now I just have this one nice little tree, you know, that hopefully can do well. It hasn't grown much in these past 2 years, but a seed, it doesn't take me much extra effort to throw it in the soil as opposed to throwing it in the compost or the garbage. So this makes sense to me. Let's get a couple more in, and then I'm also going to put a fence around these, protect them from rabbits, the wild rabbits, protect them from my sheep, from my cow, from a dog just running over and snapping over. And this, once this grows in a bit, it's going to be a lot harder to distinguish from just the regular ground. So even the children could easily run over this and snap this thing, but I like it. Let's plant another one. And I will say one cool thing about not gardening last year and having a drought pretty much and stuff like that is there was a number more seedlings in that bed. These three are the only ones that made it through. Why do I say that's good? Well, these ones are obviously more drought tolerant. They're obviously able to take care of things on their own a little better without being babied. And why do I like that? Well, if I've got to invest a whole bunch of time and effort taking care of something, then I have more of an investment that's harder to get a good return on. Here, I've got one straight shaft up the top. It actually has got some aphids at the top. I'm going to clear those off. Remove all that I see, kill them. And then I'm going to snip around the bottom of here because there's 1, 2, 3. That one's a pincher. That's another one to pinch. These little suckers essentially aren't any good just to have growing up from there. I may try to take some rooting hormone and see if I can get these guys to grow. I did some pruning earlier this year when I got back to gardening, and some of them still look pretty good. We'll see what happens. Now, especially with those bugs on here, I don't want to create too much stress for the plant. It's being transplanted, it's also being pruned. It had aphids already, so this is what I like. It's actually probably about 18 inches, 22 inches maybe, to the tip from the soil. And then it's all just leafing out right there. It's recessed here. I'll come in later, add a little bit of rabbit manure around here. Nice time release thing. When it rains, the manure will go down, you know, the nutrients from it. So I like this. This is a good tree. I'm trying to think if I plant another one over here, if I put one up a little bit closer. I may put this one closer to the mini barn. But I want a good amount in the area where they're able to pollinate each other. So even if they are self-fertile, they're able to get a heavier harvest, a heavier yield. So we'll try that. So, we do have a while till we find out how this experiment works. If they're putting on fruit in another 2 years, which, you know, they're not that big, we could potentially have somebody else try it, somebody who needed some food at the time. And another year after that, we could try them ourselves. They're still young trees, but they are doing well. I'm excited just because this costs nothing. A little bit of time, a little bit of effort, but life's kind of an experiment anyway. I like doing stuff like this. I like giving ourselves the opportunity. Who knows, this could be a huge blessing for our family. We may be finding this one so tasty and delicious, we'll be taking scions from it and grafting it into other rootstock. You know, the only way they get new versions of apples is by cross-pollinating and planting seeds. So I like it. I'm excited. If I got to cut down a bunch of branches later to graft into because it's not that good of an apple, I can't wait to fire up the smokehouse with some apple wood. I'm not going to cut down my good trees to get apple wood. So just like Three Feathers Farm, we're ones here that don't mind doing a little Johnny Appleseed, doing a little things old school, and planting good viable seeds when we got them, see what comes of them. I'll see you next time. Papa out.
The cow head is good? Yeah. That's because you know.